Hi, fourth graders. You did a great job tackling your state's geography. And today we're moving on to climate. This is also going to be an excellent opportunity for you to practice and develop your good note-taking skills. Let's get started. Some vocabulary I want you to think about related to climate. Number one is obviously climate. Two, precipitation. Say that. Precipitation. And three, average. Think about those definitions. If you need to pause the video to get more think time, pause now and play back when you're ready to hear the answers. So climate is anything relating to weather. And you're going to be talking all about climate and the climate of your state today. Some states are known to have a warm weather climate, like Florida or California, but that's certainly not the case for Illinois. Right? We know, especially given the recent snowfall, that we experience all the seasons and have at times a very cold climate. Okay, precipitation, speaking of snowfall, precipitation is any liquid that comes from the sky. So rain, sleet, snow, hail, all counts as forms of precipitation. This word average, it's actually a mathematical term. So if we think about the average temperature for January, say, you're going to take the temperature every day in January and then take the high every day in January, add up those temperatures and then divide them by the number of days in that month. And that's how you get the average, and it'll tell you what the temperature should be around, right? So in Chicago, a reasonable average temperature for January, I just looked this up a second ago actually, what did we say? In northern Illinois, average January temperature was about 24 degrees, right? So like we said, pretty cold here. But that's how you get an average. It's what it'll be around. Keep those in mind. You will probably see them pop up in your research and your reading today. Now, I said you practice note-taking, and a big skill of note-taking is categorizing or grouping your information into categories that make sense, that have a few details that you can put in them. So just for fun, let's think about this question. What categories would you use to describe A4A? So if you had to give an overview of A4A, and you can think about it for your own section too. I just selfishly thought about it for A4A because, you know, that's my section. So what's popping into your head? Again, you can pause the video if you need more think time. But here were some categories I thought of, and then I kind of pretended if I were Miss Uselman, what might she think about? So I said my categories would be students. I'd give some details about who was in the class, the physical classroom space, how big our room is, the view outside our window, things like that would go in that category. The community and traditions. I have lots of traditions I love to do in A4A, like our certain read aloud books. And anyone in my class knows that I love a good snack time read aloud. But that would be a category for me. And academics. But now Miss Uselman, she might be more focused on the academics, right? So maybe when she's describing A4A, she would want to think in terms of, let's give some details about math. What's the math curriculum? What are students doing there? Language arts, what novels are they reading? Specials, and the Sacred Heart goals. So is either of us wrong? No. The beauty is there's more than one way to categorize information, so long as you do it in a clear way that makes sense. So my answer is correct, and so is Miss Uselman, and so is what the categories you were coming up with at home, as long as they are clear and organized. Now, one thing I want you to notice, though, see here for A4A how I put students as one of my categories? Makes sense, right? I could put a lot of details in there. But I wouldn't probably have a whole category that was just Callie Bea. Right, Callie, you're awesome, don't get me wrong. But you're just one person in the whole class. So if I'm really describing A4A, I'd want to make my category big enough and broad enough, like all students, that I could give a lot of details about that. That's my kind of funny example, but you'll see how that applies as you go do state research, that your category needs to have enough details within it to make it worth picking as a category. Okay, so now we'll practice with the state, and of course I'm going to use Illinois. So I already pulled up World Book Student. Remember, you get to that right on your state project websites, 2021, shared with you in Google Drive. Password, username, all right here. And like I said, let's use the student one because it's going to have some more detailed information. Going to use the text feature, table of contents. Today's about climate. So I will click land and climate. Hopefully it'll take me there. Being a little slow, maybe I have to refresh. Let's try that again. Well, so what should happen for you is this jumps down. For some reason, I think I'm going to have to scroll, but not too bad. Okay, so I get to the land and climate section. And then I'm seeing a bunch about regions here, the Till Plains. Does that have to do with the climate or the weather? No, so since today my focus is climate, I'm going to use these headings to help myself skip all the way down until, keep going, ding, 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 climate. I found my keyword. I'm going to read this section to you while you follow along. And I want you to be thinking, what are possible categories you could organize this climate information into? Let me say that once more. What are possible categories you could organize this climate information into? Try to come up with at least 4 and jot them down as I read. I'll also let you pause at the end to jot them down, but if one pops into your head, write it down as I read. So grab your pencil paper and then follow along on your screen. Climate. The weather of Illinois varies greatly from season to season, with cold winters and hot summers. The weather also may change sharply from day to day, especially in winter. Sometimes the temperature changes as much as 20 degrees Fahrenheit in an hour. These rapid changes in temperature are caused by winds that can sweep into the state from any direction without mountains to block them. Of course, we know Illinois is a very flat state, no mountains to stop that wind. The coldest part of Illinois is the north, which has an average, there's that word, January temperature of 24 degrees Fahrenheit and an average July temperature of 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Southern Illinois averages 33 degrees Fahrenheit in January and 78 degrees Fahrenheit in July. The lowest temperature ever recorded in Illinois was negative 38 degrees Fahrenheit, which occurred at Mount Carroll on January 31st, 2019, not too long ago. That might have been the polar vortex year. The highest temperature was 117 degrees Fahrenheit at East St. Louis on July 14th, 1954. You may have noticed when I was reading that, I skipped over the parentheses which said degrees Celsius. I was still noticing them with my eyes, but it didn't, since we commonly in the US use degrees Fahrenheit and we've asked you to use degrees Fahrenheit on your notes, I didn't even need to repeat the temp as the conversion to Celsius because that wasn't helping me understand any better. So you always want to notice the parentheses, but sometimes you don't have to write it down and you can skip over if you're reading aloud. I'll do that again later when we see it'll give inches and centimeters. And I'm just going to read the inches because that's a measurement I'm comfortable with. Okay, let's read more. Be thinking about your categories. Hopefully you have 1 or 2 by now. Let's keep going. Rainfall and snowfall vary within Illinois. Winds from the Gulf of Mexico bring most of the rainfall and snowfall. Southern Illinois averaged 45 inches of precipitation a year, and northern Illinois has about 36 inches. There's that key word, precipitation. Oh, wow, that's cool. It even would define it for you, but we already said it was going to be rain, sleet, snow, hail. Oh, I forgot dew could be the case as well. Let me get out of this. Close. Oh no. Sorry. I think it will be better on your computer, but while I'm sharing my screen, it kind of jumps around a bit. No problem. The northern part of Illinois has about 32 inches of snow a year, and southern Illinois gets about 12 inches. In northern Illinois, Lake Michigan influences Chicago area weather. The lake warms winds during winter and cools them in the summer. Tornadoes have killed more people in Illinois than in any other state. The most destructive tornado in March 1925 killed more than 600 Illinoisans, including 234 near Murfreesboro. So kind of an alarming, sad fact that I didn't know before, that tornadoes kill more people in Illinois than any other state, but we know in Chicago, luckily, we don't experience that form of extreme weather. Often that would be pretty rare for our specific Chicago climate. So, do you have your categories? Do you have at least 4 of them? If not, pause the video and jot them down. And then I'm going to share with you some of my categories. So let me pull up this. These were my actual my climate notes. We'll go over those in a second. But the categories I was thinking were extreme weather, northern Illinois and southern Illinois, tornadoes as a category, and temperature changes. That was how I grouped them. And it was funny, I actually did this exercise with another teacher, and she said she thought of it as seasons, high and low temperatures, precipitation, and then the effect of Lake Michigan. Those were going to be her categories. So was she right and I was wrong, or I was right and she was wrong? No, we're both right as long as we have the facts to support our categories. They are organized and clear. And maybe you came up with some that I didn't even mention. Did you have some different categories for this text? Perhaps. So again, the beauty is there's more than one right answer, but it has to be organized and clear. I think I've said that about 10 times, so it's probably important. It has to be organized and clear. Okay, last but not least, let's look at my example of my note taker for Illinois. So I had the categories and then I put some more information under each one. All of this came from my text. Pause the video moment and think about what you notice about my notes. You might have been thinking, I didn't use complete sentences. Sometimes I used abbreviations if they made sense. Like for average, I said AVG, and January, JAN. That was okay because those were really clear. Wasn't like I was abbreviating every single word, just some obvious ones. You might have noticed that I put a lot of details, right? This is a pretty full page. Even though I didn't fill the last box, the directions had said fill in at least 4 of the boxes, and I filled 5 very full. You also may notice I put my category on top of the box. Here, I forgot I put it in the box, but then I started putting my category on top of the box and underline it. Okay. Hopefully you noticed some even more things as you looked at this example. And now it's your turn to go model that, or not model that, do it for your state. And I want everyone to start, please, on World Book Student, because I know that for most states this has some really valuable information. But if you need more, I've also listed some other sources. Well, Pebble Go would be the other source that I recommend trying if you need extra information. And it says Statebook on here. You don't have access to your Statebooks yet. We'll work on that. But in the meantime, you have all these great online resources. And if you find another one, just as you are perusing the state project websites, if you find another source in here, feel free to list that on your note taker as well. Happy researching!